Welcome to ADHR, the Chop Out on Zwift. Today we are out on Watopia for the Volcano Circuit counterclockwise for 6 laps, a total of 30 kilometers. Chop racing, handicap racing out on Zwift, where the categories all race against each other's D, C, B, A category, all different levels of riders with a chance to win out on the race course today. Joining me today, of course, is going to be my co-commentator from the land down under, Pat Shaw, with all of the inside information about the racers there, as well as what chop racing is all about. Pat, what is going on here? Quick little overview. I know every week we do it, but some of the newer viewers might not understand exactly what's going on with this handicapped type race.
Well, in essence, we have the groups broken up into 4 categories. In this case, we use letters, so A, B, C, and D grade. D grade, they start off first. They have a gap back to C grade, a gap between C grade and B grade, and then finally a gap between B grade and A grade. And the objective is to be the first rider across the line at the finish. But obviously, it's a lot harder for A grade as they've got a less amount of time to cover the race distance than that of D grade. Imperative you work together as a group. There's no doubt about that. And the bigger your group, the faster you will go also. So last week we saw a really big effort by D grade, but A grade has just been phenomenal for the first 2 weeks of our coverage of the chop racing here on a Thursday night. And as I said last week, I really hope that they struggle to get up tonight.
Yeah, it's good to see that, the D grade were working really well together the first week. I thought last week, it looked like out on that classic course they might be able to pull something off, but no go out there. So we'll have to see how that ends up playing out today here. Looks like we do have some cool new graphics out on the screen here, giving everybody an idea of exactly what's going on. I think we might have some time gaps as well as people are playing or racing out on course on the counterclockwise course here. It'd be interesting to see how things play out on this course specifically because there is a two-tier situation every lap. We call it the two-tier climb out on the volcano circuit, and essentially it is a up front, probably a 5 to 6% gradient for about 30 seconds. It levels off for a moment and then kicks again through the start finish line. So, excuse me, the lap banner, which will then be the finish line, not start line, as we obviously starting from the piers. So we'll have to see, how they're able to manage that as far as the D and the C category go. We were talking about that a little bit before the broadcast. There is a reality of the climbing sections really being, if it was a pure climbing course, Pat, the D's and the C's, they'd be caught pretty quickly without a huge time gap. Now that's why we try and go after these flatter courses, but the counterclockwise course, maybe not totally a flat course because of that two-tier every lap.
Yeah, it's going to be the most difficult part for both D grade and C grade. But it probably makes the other parts of the course so much more crucial. So they know that the hills are going to be tough for them, but they just need to hold a regular pace, a tempo, as we would call it in cycling terms. And then when they get back on the other flatter terrain, that's where they've really got to push themselves to the limit and use their power-ups to help the group. Don't hold on to those power-ups for the final lap. Use them during your event so you can help your teammates. And in this case, everyone that's in your group is your teammate. In A grade and B grade, we're going to just see them continually roll turns until the riders can no longer stay there. Then they'll drop off and the strongest will survive. But out in front, it seems that some weeks we just have these riders in D and C that are passengers only. And that's what we really need from C and D grade tonight, is to really be part of the race for your team and not just be a passenger.
Yeah, we're looking to get some shots here of the D grade in total. We are seeing Bramley here, which is the beacon out there, and now it does look like the C grade is starting to get going as well. And here's the start of the C grade. You can see it looks like quite a few riders starting in here. A lot of times, one of the largest groups out there out on course, and so it looks like Poli here looks like with coming out of Australia. Most of it, as you can see on the right hand side of the screen there for the riders nearby, are going to be coming out of the land down under or New Zealand. Lonergan riding for the AHDRs there as well, and that is going to be the beacon, and it's kind of a nicer feature in Zwift, the beacon, specifically for group rides is what this was designed for, but in a situation like the chop race where it's not a group ride. It's obviously a race. It's everything you got. People are going to be dropping off like a team time trial situation. But that beacon definitely helps out, especially the C and the D categories who really need to work together very well in order to um, be in the right places at the right time to be working together. And if you lose sight of that beacon, sometimes next thing you know, you can be off the back. Maybe you're off the front by too far, and the beacon starts to get dropped off. That it's very helpful, I think, for a lot of the riders to know where to be, when, and how to work together. Then again, at the same time, for those that are D and C category, if you're hanging out in the middle of the pack too much and not making your way to the front and pushing over your functional threshold power, that pack ain't going to travel any faster. So, there's a little bit of a balance there, but that's what that beacon's all about, Pat. And I think it helps out for the riders to know where to be.
Oh yeah, and particularly in the chop series, your ride leader is just as important as probably the whole group on its own. So there's two sorts of parts to the parcel. You've got all the riders, but the ride leader is really the person that sends the messages through to your group, whichever group you're in, and encourages you to continue to swap turns, to push to a certain amount of watts per kilo. Watch out for more difficult parts of the course. They start to head into the volcano now, the degraders, and it's important that they manage their effort, because we've also seen in other weeks that degrade starts to go really well and they get to that last lap. And it looks like it's a 50-50 race. And then all of a sudden they really slow up, where from behind the groups in A and B have generated far better pace in the final lap than they do in the rest of the race. And so what we think is the required distance needed to win, they haven't had it so far. So hopefully those ride leaders really use their leadership skills tonight. And they're much like the director sportifs that you'll see in the team cars during the Tour de France. They're the ones that drive the team tonight, and it's up to them. So when the team does succeed, A, B, C, or D, the ride leaders do take a lot out of that as well.
We are seeing the B category now just getting out onto course. We are looking at the A category still sitting in the pens, it looked like there for a moment. Lonogrand here now from the C category, again using that beacon. We do sometimes, some weeks do see the ride leaders with a lot of chatter in the group, telling some directions and coaching their group along. One of the nice features in Zwift that the ride leaders, those with the beacon, can have, that comes across the screen real big. So once in a while we do see them coaching things along. Lonogren here looks like super focused this week. 154 beats heart rate in the upper left hand corner, 220 watts. So you can see what the current wattage is that the rider is putting out. That is actually the wattage that is making his avatar move forward at the speed that they are currently traveling, 46 km per hour at the top here. Only 3:32 into this race. It's a 6-lap race. I have a feeling at the pointy end of the race for the A's, it's probably going to take them right around 45 minutes or so to finish this race. So it's going to be a chase to bring back 10 minutes. So we're looking at about a 55-minute race or so, I think, for the D category. And we'll have to see how they are able to hold off the pack here today. But still about we're 4 minutes from the start of this C category. So that means that it's about 1 minute, I believe, to the starts of the Bs. Do we have the time gaps? I mean, were there any adjustments to the time gaps this week, Pat, that we're aware of? I know last week there was an extra 2 minutes on the group last week between the A's and the B's because the A's were able to catch up so quickly. Were there more adjustments that were made?
Well, this week I didn't actually get the message from Mr. Bacon himself, but I would assume that there would be a bit of a time increase at minimum for A grade. They had 1 minute out to 2 minutes after week 1 to week 2, which was last week. Maybe just make it a solid 3 minutes this week. I think that's probably fair.
Yeah, I'm looking, and it looks like it's perhaps about 2 minutes again because the B category at the start of the A's, I'm just taking a look at the start of the A's on my feed here, and they did take off and it said 2:30 in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So it looks like, the B category obviously gaining a quick 30 seconds in time, but I believe it was about a 2 minute gap again. So we'll have to see if they can bring that back this week. Last week they brought it back with quite a bit of time left to go, but the time gap only 2 minutes as the A category is about to head into the little bit of a climb we're looking at here. Kim Little here, 4.5 watts per kilogram. Obviously been very strong in this series so far as we're looking at the A category. Jeffrey Creel there for Vision is the ride leader today. We'll see if he does coach them along as much at all. It looks like Brown is out there from GB Coaching. You've been chatting a little bit about that athlete, I believe, week after week, but we haven't seen him participate yet, I believe, until today. What's going on there, Pat?
Well, that's Graham Brown, so Olympic gold medalist, and he's also a coach himself. So he's got some riders in here tonight joining him from Perth. Graham Dawson, he's an ex-WA criterium champion or road race champion, I believe. So correct me if I'm wrong. And also Guy Karma, I saw him in there as well. So a fair few riders from over the West and Australia competing tonight in this A-grade group, and they'll really push the power at the front. Guy Karma, he's not afraid to go to the front. That's him just a few back from Kim Little, and he really likes to push the power. So this is a really strong A-grade again tonight, and I think that they are really on a mission already. They're pushing some high speed.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting how strung out it was already. I mean, some of these riders here, 34 in the A category, but already some of the riders having trouble to hang on for a moment there. So it was interesting to see the A category not working very well together from the get-go. Maybe just need to get those speeds high enough and grab onto some wheels. Now, 75 riders in the B category. We're looking at D. Hansen here in 12th place currently toward the front end of this group. 50 kilometers per hour as they head downhill on the outer end of, or on the back end of this course. This is the section of the course that a lot of the riders will be thinking about the sprint for the win if it was the last lap. Now, this is going to be a section where they do rest up a little bit. Look at the speed of this pack, though, as they come flying down along the ocean side there. And 4.4 watts per kilogram here coming from Hansen as they cruise along at that 53 kilometers per hour. They take this speed, though, into this flatter section and then roll on into the two-tier after this. A lot of times this is where you rest up a little bit, shake the legs out a little bit. You can take that momentum from that downhill into that flatter section, and then it's a kick into the initial climb of that two-tier here into the volcano. And so we're watching this closely for how they do play this each lap. Now, looking back at the C category, they're on the opposite end of the volcano. They have just exited the other end of the volcano, and Lonergan here, leading this pack out well here. Still 153 beats per minute as they head back in toward, so there's two sections of the volcano. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this course, if you have ridden this course, you'll know there are two ways to go through the volcano, and they'll be taking a left-hand turn in just a moment here into the entrance of the other side from the lap banner, actually. So 28th place currently coming for Lonergan, 87 total in this C category. So this is the calmer section of the course. A lot of times this is where the speeds can get high, though. And like you said, this is where the C category really needs to focus in on working together and getting those speeds as high as they possibly can, because the climbing section of this course is definitely not going to favor them keeping the A's and the B's off of their wheel.
Yeah, and there's a local fella in there tonight, Jason Birch, so I'll give a shout out to him. But also I've got some instructions coming through. So from the Chop series, A-grade are chasing, in fact, 2 minutes tonight. You are correct in saying that, Nathan. However, they've never chased more than 1 minute before on this course. So that gives you a bit of an idea. They've raced this course before. They know how long it normally takes. So A-grade, the biggest they've ever chased on this course is 1 minute. But tonight, 2 minutes is the gap as we head back to A-grade and have a look. Kim Little, he's always happy to do his work on the front. David Powell there from Bendigo, he's also in there. Breton, always strong. Cam Roberts, such a strong group of riders. And what I did see before in B grade too is we had some of our riders from the SRAM Send It Series Women's National Roads Series competition, and they're riding in the B grade tonight. So Taryn Heather, she stood out as one that really comes to mind, that's been competing really well at that SRAM Send It Series on a Tuesday night, should I say, around the same time. But A grade really pumping it out. They've covered 4.3 kilometres in just over 5 minutes, which shows you just the speed they're doing. Jeffrey Creel is in there as the ride leader, and also just spotted Brad Norton up there as well. So he's a very strong rider, particularly in the time trial and individual pursuit disciplines on the velodrome.
I believe I was going back and forth a little bit in a race recently with Brad Norton. So the very strong rider actually was unable to hang on throughout the rest of the race. So I'll be watching out for him for sure. Well, maybe that doesn't set a lot if he's dropping me at this point. But we are looking at the two-tier climb now that we have been talking about over and over again. This is the crucial spot to keep the speed on the course, especially for the A and the B category today. And you can see the kind of pressure that they're putting on the pedals here, dropping off a few of the riders now. As you do see, it looks like Minohara, they're coming out of Japan, as well as Graham Dawson off the back by 14 seconds here at this place. So Norton here sitting on the back, though, with Kim Little here, trying to hang back on to this group as they bring the speed back up, and they're going to be heading downhill momentarily out of the other side of the volcano now. And that is the lap section, as well as the finish section of the course. They'll be doing 30 kilometers total, 6 laps out on course here today. We do see a little bit of chatter here coming through on the Facebook, as well as a few of the other feeds out there. And we are hearing that people are really liking to see the different categories having the different kits, and that is a great identification, that's for sure, between each one of the categories, because once you do get in amongst them out on course, like once the A category does catch some of the B riders, the B catch the C's, and so on, getting that identification and know who you're working with and who you're racing against and whether or not you're going to represent your categories. At the end of the day, there is the reality of a single rider winning, and any single rider can win because of this handicap race. But there's also the representation of your category, that the A is a win or the B is a win. I mean, there's almost more of a team affiliation with the category. At least I get that feeling that, if the B's win or the C's win or the D's win, it's kind of like shooting for the underdog a little bit sometimes. And there's this, having that affiliation with the kits is a pretty cool thing that that Zwift can do to put everybody in that same kit, to have that affiliation and knowing who you're riding with.
Oh, I really love it. It was a great touch. Last year I competed in a few of these chop races of a Thursday night, and well, there's no doubt you've got your work cut out for you regardless of what group you're in. Another thing that really I enjoy about the Chop series, and it's also now starting to feed into the SRAM Send It series, is we're seeing under 19s, we're seeing under 17s, in some cases, even in D grade, we're seeing under 11s take part in this series, which is just fantastic, because from a standpoint as a parent, I really like to see kids riding indoors and enjoying it, because they're still getting that exercise. They're still getting the exposure to difficult racing that can bring their skill set up for the future, but they're not out there in the dark and in the freezing cold where they're most vulnerable in the winter months. So great to see young Stretton and Mackenzie from down in Tasmania having a crack again tonight. They're in this group in the B category, which says a lot too, because they're both under 17s, I believe. Maybe Mackenzie might be under 15. But it's just, for mine, Nathan, that's a really, really positive thing about Zwift. Anybody can participate. Doesn't matter what age you are. Yes, okay, if you're a bit lower on the watts per kilo than someone else, then you're in a different grade. But it doesn't mean you can't participate. And I've always really enjoyed that community aspect of Zwift and Zwift racing.
And that's something that's real special about the reality of talent identification on Zwift. It's something that's really special with Zwift in general as a whole, with the ability to mix it up with people from all over the world and race with, and as well as ride with people all over the world. But there's also something that's an extra step in the chop racing with everybody challenging each other, right? So the C's and the D's and the B categories and the A categories can't always challenge each other, and that's definitely something that's different here, and pretty cool to see from that U standpoint as well as all the different ability level standpoint, being able to mix it up with some of the fastest riders in the world and challenge them to push them, everybody pushing themselves to their maximum level. For those of you unfamiliar with why that is, as far as how Zwift does that, everybody puts their functional threshold power in the game. That is how much power you can hold on average for 1 hour straight. That is your functional threshold power. That's the definition of that. And because of that, Zwift can tell you, well, here's about the category or your ability level on the bike. And from there, it can put you in a category which is of similar ability level as what the speed that you'll be able to produce in the game. And then when you're in the game, into a C category, D category, or B category, A category, you're with like fitness level people who can then work with you in order to, well, if you're racing against them, not work with you and try and beat you. But in this situation, obviously, try and hold off the categories that are at a different ability level. But that's what this handicap racing is really all about. A couple of more comments here coming on through, though. From the chat here, and we're hearing a little bit about Nathan waking up early. We didn't wake up early at all. We actually just stayed up all night for the broadcast, but I appreciate your concern there, Louis de Freitas, and we appreciate you hanging out in the broadcast. And if you do have any more chatter, go ahead and bring it on through. We are watching Facebook as well as the YouTube chats, Twitch chat, Mixer. Let us know what your thoughts are on the race out here, and we'll go ahead and get your comments and questions we look through here. Kim Little, though, sitting in first place, a little bit off the front here, trying to egg on the rest of the A category, as maybe there's a little bit of concern as to whether or not they're going to be able to bring the gaps back today. And there was a comment as well from Rusty Dev in there saying, not too fast A grade, don't want to penalize us for next week. I don't know about that because I don't see anybody from the other grades at this point up ahead. They got to get all the speed out there as they possibly can.
Yeah, but maybe he's taking a runner's aspect to it, and in running they're critically known in the handicap scene in Australia for sort of throwing in the towel ever so slightly to get a little less handicap so then they can dominate in the big events. So that's an interesting perspective to take. I must say, no matter how large the challenge is for A grade, they always do push their hardest to catch up towards the end. And number of them that come to mind is definitely Kim Little. He's one that always pushes, and he actually gets a bit upset with the riders if they're not putting in 100%. He's been known to ride off the front with Cam Roberts before and go at it just in the two of them. Even Zach Johnson, who we know is now over in Europe, about to commence his European racing stint with Dre Pack Holistic Development Team. So we wish Zach all the best, because he's the one that does partake every week in the Chop Series. But yeah, it's not known, the handicap scene or the Chop Series, for just rolling along. Everyone seems to put their best foot forward. And talking about Kim Little, he's always at the forefront.
He definitely is a former UK national champion of Zwift. He knows how to race out on Zwift. One of the most experienced racers from some of the old school days of the first broadcast we ever did. So this man knows how to push the pace out there. Now back in the back of the pack, looking like he's getting a little bit of a reprieve after that kick toward the front to get the speed up here. It looks like Graham Brown making his way to the front from GB Coaching here now, also at 5.4 watts per kilogram. It looks like a couple of the European riders out of Sweden as well as France, there with Frederick as well as Selin out there from Innovation. Kim now letting a little bit of a gap go, though, not showing experience there for a moment. Maybe knowing it'll come back after the speed from that kick he put out there. But on this downhill, he needs to watch out. This two-tier descent can actually catch you off guard if you let too much of a gap go, and you have to really kick into some high waters to bring that back sometimes out on Zwift here. So into this two-tier descent, there's going to be a little bit of a rest up, and then they'll be kicking again into the climb. We'll have to see what the gaps are here momentarily. We are watching some of the chats here again here over on YouTube. We're hearing that Jake Mitchell is sitting on a plane and watching live. This is living. Jake Mitchell, thanks for tuning in live from a plane out here as we are watching the chop here. There's a beacon, Mark Jones, out on course right now. For those of you who do not know why the beacon is out there, it's because this is a handicap race, the chop race. in which all the categories do work together, and they include the beacon so that everybody knows where their category is at, because it's essentially a massive team time trial to try and chase down the other categories, and then a race to the line for an individual. The beacon helps out a lot in order to keep all of the riders that are working together, to give them an idea of where they should be, who they should be working with. Also, with the beacon, it gives the ride leader the ability to chat to the rest of the group to know who to listen to if there is somebody maybe causing mayhem. And you can do whatever you want, it's a race, but going off the front in a situation like this with too much speed, sometimes, especially in the C and D category, can only hurt that category to try and hold them off. I mean, we saw that situation in the first week, Pat, where the D category splintered early on and they were caught pretty quickly.
Yeah, and we've seen them drop off a fair few riders tonight early on as well. But A-grade themselves have dropped off a few riders early on also. And on this course, I always find when you're going in and out of the volcano, it's difficult because if you don't keep the power on going into the volcano and particularly coming out of the volcano, your group can really stretch out. And if you get someone on the front that is pushing that little bit too hard too early in the race, that can really be problematic for the group because you can fall apart really quickly on this course. But as you mentioned about the beacon, I really love how the beacon can chat. And I mentioned earlier in the stream that the power of the ride leader, who is the beacon, to give information and good information is crucial to the success of one group to another. And we've seen in the past, as I mentioned, Kim Little is pretty vocal in the group previously, but it's Jeffrey Creel that normally ride leads for them. And when you get some negative back and forth going, that can just hurt the group as much as it can by not going to the front, should I say. But looking really good here in the C category. Looks like they've got a great rhythm going. Everyone's sitting around the same watts per kilo and everyone moving around the group. You want to see the names on the right-hand side of the screen jaggering around. You don't want to see them sitting stagnant, because if they're stagnant, everyone's on the limit and everyone's going as hard as they can. So it's good to see those names jagging around, making sure different people are going to the front to do their turn at the front.
Yeah, as far as the riders in the C category that we were just looking at here, a little bit of shout out to those who are doing a lot of the work out there. If you are able to check out the stats over at zwiftpower.com, that's where we do bring a lot of it in from a lot of times here. Jeffrey Choi out there with a 3.3 watts per kilogram for Team ADHR, doing a good amount of the work there. Charles Wheeler also at 3.2, 3.4 watts per kilogram coming from a Japanese rider, Hiroyama, as well as I did see a 3.4 or 3.6 from another rider there in the C category, done a ton of work, and that is Terry Clark. So, putting in the work in order to get this group as far up as they possibly can. Richard Neal getting up early, it looks like, out of the USA as well, up in that 3.4 watts per kilogram. So the brunt of the work they're put out by a lot of these riders we're mentioning. They do want to go over the top of their functional threshold power a lot of times when you do hit the front end of the pack there. Otherwise, I mean, there's a reality in these situations that it is essentially over-under intervals that you are doing. You're going to go over your threshold and then sit in under your threshold, get a little bit of reprieve, and then push that pace to get it as high as you possibly can when you hit the front again. And the only thing that you might want to hold back from is not burning out so you don't find yourself off the back, because it is still a race to the line. Now, if you just want to be this, sacrifice out there for the team, for the category, a little bit more than over-unders might be happening there, but with the C category being between that 2.0 to 3.0 watts per kilogram, they're going to be probably pushing right around that 3.0 to 3.5 on the front end of this group here in order to keep those speeds as high as they can. This is that section they're going to struggle with to match that of the A category into that 4 to 5 watts per kilogram. Obviously, we saw from the A category a lot of orange numbers. Orange numbers do start kick on the right-hand side of that screen next to the names, so you can see their watts per kilogram on screen underneath their names. And when those watts per kilogram go into orange numbers, you know they're up into that 8+ watts per kilogram. That's like a sprinting effort in that A category, or almost sprint effort, maybe just a little bit under if it's about 8 or 9. But anything over that 10, 11, 12 is definitely a sprint effort. And we're not going to see that most likely from the C and the D category. And that's why watts per kilogram are king when it comes to climbing. That's how you get the speed on the climbs. It's all about pushing out as many watts as you can against your weight to bring it uphill, basic physics situation. And that is why in these situations, a lot of times the watts per kilogram being lower from those C and D categories, they need to really work together in those flats and try and just get as best as they can over these climbing situations here. Heading through the lap finish banner here, as it is 3 laps to go. 3 laps to go, total of 30 kilometers out on course here. And it does look like we do have the time gaps up on the left-hand side of the screen there. Cool new feature that we do have here. It looks like the A category is only 30 seconds off of catching that B category. Your C category we're looking at here right now, 123 off of the D category. Still a pretty good gap, though, between the B and the C category, but obviously that is the largest gap that does start around 5 minutes between those Bs and the Cs, and then 5 minutes between the Cs and the Ds. So a little bit of work cut out for the As and the Bs at this point, but the catch is going to be made, it looks like, between those As and Bs as they start to close down within a minute at this point. Still some time to make up, though, to that C and D category, Pat.
Yeah, well, it's just about 12 kilometers to go, a little bit under for D grade. That part of the graphic really excites me, and great job by the Zwift team, is that in brackets, the amount of riders that remain in contention in that group, that's crucial in this type of racing. The more riders you have to contribute to the pace of the team, the better you're going to go. And that's just a fact. So even though B grade's getting closed in from A grade, still 300 meters is the difference, about 200 now. They're closing in continuously. But the group of 41, that's really going to help that A grade group. They're down to 17, of which probably you suggest 6 or 7 are doing the most part of the work. But when they join that B grade, there's sure to be a few B graders that want to join in the pulling power of that big group. That'll be about 60 riders when they come together. And then it leaves out in front just 11 D graders being pursued by 35 C graders. So there's some pretty big numbers coming from behind. But as you said, D grade, they're holding on to a pretty decent lead at the moment, still 800 meters in front of C grade. So really, really good to see that graphic coming up. It just gives so much more information for everyone viewing at home.
Yeah, it's a great, and it's great to see the numbers there of athletes left in the group there. C category still, it looks like 34 total. B category with the most amongst the riders at this point. D category with only 11 left. That is going to be a struggle to hang on against that C category with so many more riders there. And, now, here's the thing. If the D category and C category can get together, they're going to be able to challenge the B category as far as those 41 riders that go. But the reality is this week, numbers do matter, especially out on Zwift. And just a shout out to those of you that might be watching and think this is an interesting, format. You can jump, because it's open to anybody, this is kind of a great stepping stone into racing to kind of check out what racing is all about, because it isn't necessarily right from the get-go just everything that you got and you're just going to be shot out the back riding solo. Because it is a type of team time trial amongst the entire category, you can find riders that are like your ability and jump in there. And it looks like D category might need a few recruits out there. So if D category, C category riders, a shout out there. The more of you that do show up, there's only 17 left in the A's. Give it to them a little bit there and try and take down the win here in one of these weeks here. But it does look like the numbers are dwindling in that D category. Now the B category with only 38 left. So it looks like they picked up the pace perhaps a little bit as they start to drop off. We do see about 24 seconds, 25 seconds between the categories at this point for the A's and the B's, and it looks like that is going to get shut down here momentarily. As we look at the C category heading through this section of the course, this again is that section of the course where you get a little bit of a rest up after that downhill 2-tier and back into the uphill 2-tier. We'll see how the C category does take this on again, and if they're able to hold off for this final 10 kilometers. There's still a lot of room between this C category and that B. This could happen here, Pat. I was a little bit skeptical after the first 2 weeks, seeing how quickly the A's and the B's were able to shut things down. But there's not a whole lot of landscape left for that B and A category to work with. If the C's really start to ramp things up here, I'm starting to see the possibility for them catching those D's and rolling right on through and perhaps holding off these categories that are on the chase.
Yes, and there's still an opportunity for D grade to survive themselves. So this is going to be really interesting, because although A grade closing in, they're not closing in as quickly as we first thought. And with just 9 kilometers remaining for D grade, 500 meters the gap between them and C grade. This is really sat in a really good position. And let's keep in memory that A grade, this is the first time they've chased a 2-minute gap on this course. So they're putting out an incredible performance as well. What is the key to D and C grade surviving is they need to start to push the pace a bit harder into the volcano and out of the volcano. They're holding each other on the rest of the course. And that's where we said that would be their strength. Their weakness was certainly going to be the 2-step rise that comes up very shortly for them. However, I think if they can push a little bit harder through this time, they'll get 2 laps to go, and that'll give them enough belief that it can happen. And then they can start to use those power-ups as well. So if anyone's in the group with the power-ups, they need to start using them to help the D grade and C grade. But you can see back in A grade, there's some real movement coming, almost panic stations, you could say. They haven't seen anyone all day. They know that B grade's just up the road. They've got them in sight. They're starting to catch some stragglers from B grade now. And as they go in, you can see all those feather power-ups being popped.
There's actually a pretty significant gap between the A's and the B's this week still. I mean, I'm surprised at this point. Are they going to be able to catch up out to those riders up ahead? Currently sitting in second place, now moving back. Cam Roberts from GPM here, one of the national team riders from the Send It series that we do have on Tuesdays here, was starting to drive the pace there at the front end momentarily here. Looks like they are going to make the catch here. It looks like, it looked like the gap was a little bit different there between the riders, but it looks like it has come down, and they have caught the B category, I believe, at this point, as they go ahead and roll on through. They're going to have 2 laps to go with this A category now. At this point, they're starting to pick up a few of the riders from the B category, and they're going to really start to pick up the pace here. 35 seconds up to the C's at this point. The A's do catch the B's. As we do see on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the positions have changed at this point. A category now sitting in 3rd place amongst the categories at this point. 34 seconds though for the C's. 2 laps to go. The speed's got to pick up at this point. It's going to be very difficult, I think, for them to make, for them to hold off that 30 seconds. A lap and a half, we're looking at, I believe, that's going to be right around that 7 kilometers all-out time trial now for that C category. I think the hopes are only in there for that category at this point.
Well, at this point, you would have a look at it and you'd say that it could all come together in the final meters still, because you get A grade and B grade, they come together. They got that potency now of what is effectively 53 riders in that front group, back group chasing now. There's less than a kilometer that covers them. If we have a think about the time gaps that started the day, this is on for all 4 categories tonight, which is really exciting. This is the type of finish that we've been waiting for. It's taken now 3 weeks. We're in the 3rd week of streaming for this season, and we could be up for a real belter tonight, because D grade still holds that 30 seconds lead over C grade, and there's about the same margin between C grade and this massive group, this peloton of riders from A and B grade that continues to shred riders as well, down to 50 now, chasing 30 in C grade, and D grade still sticking together as a unit. 11 riders with 6.5 kilometers to go. Come on, D grade, you can get it done. It's interesting to see Graham Brown in his debut in the Chop Series. He's really contributing tonight. Up the front with Cam Roberts back in A grade. Well, can they get up? It would be pretty amazing if Graham Brown was to take the win. That would be a bit of a story.
Does have a little bit of a sprint maybe left in the legs, perhaps Graham Brown. Definitely, I would think that is his forte out there out on course here. But looking at, there is 11 riders we do see here in that D category that have held onto that 21 seconds over the C category, but it's almost a minute still back to the A's and the B's then for that D category. So really able to, you put on a show out here today, but with 6 kilometers to go, the C category brought it back to about 26 seconds. Now here's the interesting thing. It's not just closing down quickly. It's kind of fluctuating a whole lot between that C and D category. So, it is it is like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back a little bit here. So they are making up time in that C category, but they're losing riders here and there every time they do make up some time. So it does look like there's a little bit of a struggle here to bring that D category back. Can they really start to ramp it up now? That's part of the thing with these situations like a team time trial. You start just thinking, how much more can I give? What is that line do I have to ride at this point? If you're one of the riders who's doing a lot of work at the front end of these categories, you start wondering, how long can I hold this kind of a power for without being shot off the back and no longer being able to contribute? And that's the situation that they're starting to feel at this point. They're really starting to try and, get that diminishing returns essentially that they start to give those efforts at the front, where it's just it's just about the landscape and covering it as quickly as you possibly can. How much power can I put out for this amount of time, rest a little bit, and then not get shot off the back here. The C category now making their way in that 2-tier again. It's gonna be 1 lap to go in just a moment here. They've got 30 seconds, it looks like. 13 seconds to the D's. It's about 20 seconds back to those A's who are chasing hard. 20 seconds on this lap. That's not a lot to work with here. The C category going to have to cut out for them, and this is probably going to shut down 10 seconds on this 2-tier. I have a feeling we may be coming down to a sprint finish between all the categories. Perhaps, but if I was gonna estimate, if I was gonna guess, I have a feeling they're gonna be caught right around the halfway mark, around the volcano counterclockwise final lap here. We do see that it's 6 seconds between the C's and the D's. There's the categories. They're starting to meet each other for the C's and the D's. Will they be able to work together? They're gonna gain an extra 11 riders now, though. The C category, is gonna pick up these riders. Now, will they work together, or are they gonna sit up and look at each other and go, well, all said and done? I would encourage them to work together. Don't look at it as a negative. Look at it as a positive now, because you've got extra riders to work against that A and B category that is just screaming like a freight train in your direction.
Yeah, and they're going to have to work together, because if they don't work together, they've got absolutely no chance. They've got 4 kilometres to go, 4 hard kilometres. Make it as hard as possible for A-grade to get on, because if A-grade gets onto the back and there's only 500, 600 metres to go, they're going to struggle to get through your entire pack. You're now up to 37 riders in this front group. A-grade, just 15 riders. They've separated themselves from the big group of riders that they were in, because they've seen that now is the time to get the catch. Under 4 kilometres to go. I mean, it's all on the line here. Anyone could get up, and that's what the chop is all about. We're all about seeing that everyone has the equal opportunity to take out the win, and we'll A-grade, or as we refer to them in real-life handicap racing, scratch. They look like they're going to get up 3 weeks in a row. Wouldn't that be a difficult one for the crew at the Chop Series? They're going to have to really give them a huge punishment next week. But they're not on just yet. They've still got 250 metres, which is the gap, and the time in the course is closing down. We're now inside the last 3 kilometres. You can see them just in the background there, a little bit of the glow from their ride leader from the A-grade pack. Well, it's going to come all together, Nathan. It's going to be a big bunch sprint for the finish. I don't know who's going to take it out tonight.
Yeah, we are seeing about a 7-second gap now between the groups here, coming back together for sure at this point, and it's going to be all about that sprint up and over the top of the 2-tier. It'll be a battle between the A's and the B's. Shout out to the D and the C category. They worked really well together, and I think that this was the closest we've got to the line in the last 3 weeks, actually. So big shout out to them. Again, Rusty Dev in chat. Apologies, but it looks like your time gap is going out a little bit more next week as well. Or maybe the course will be a little bit more toward keeping the A and the B grade off. But I have a feeling that we're going to have a little bit more punishment, as you put it there, Rusty Dev. A lot of chatter here coming through that we'll shout out to before we head into the final sprint there, as it does look like some of our top fans of the streams are hanging out in chat here. Wendy Mae Abbott, big shout out to her, the super fan who is out there, as well as Glenn Dixon says he's going to jump into the D grade for him next week. So good to hear that we are going to get some more participants in the D and the C categories. Looks like they need a little bit of help, so make sure if you are at that fitness level, your FTP does fall between that 0 to 2.0 or 2.0 to 3.0. Jump into those categories, give them some help out there, and get them to push to that finish line to hold off these A's and these B categories as well. We were seeing a little bit more chat there over in the Facebook. Good to see the llama hanging out there in the chat, GP Llama, as well as Lee Pearson asking, do they have a Discord of their own in for these categories? And no, I do not believe. Now, that is something, though, that I would suggest some organization around, as it really does help for racing out on Zwift to be able to communicate between each other, to use some sort of voice communication. A lot of the top teams within the Send It series, as well as the KISS Super League, we're all using a Discord channel, especially the community teams being a little bit more familiar with the use of Zwift and online gaming because they've been doing Zwift for so long. We'll jump into a voice communication channel and communicate with each other about how they're going to race the race, who's going to go to the front at what times. That'd be a cool, organization that some of the ride leaders or perhaps some of the participants could put together for themselves. Make sure to get that communication going to make that happen. Now we're coming into the final here. Now it's just about 1.5 kilometers to go to the finish line as we do head out of the volcano of the last time here in a moment. Cam Roberts here leading things out here. We're going through a little bit of a storm with the helicopter, but a left-hand turn here. Quick call before we hit into the two-tier. Who's going to win it today? Will it be an A? Will it be a B category? Do you have a favorite out there right now, Pat?
Look, I just think for the story of it, well, I'd like Graham Brown to get up tonight for GB coaching. So let's see what he produces. He has been using Zwift a lot recently, so he probably knows about the power-ups and how to use them. But I'm going to keep an eye on him tonight, Graham Brown.
Graham Brown is the call there coming from Pat Shaw, but Kim Little's off the front after the initial kick here. Kicks into about 10 watts per kilogram, gets a gap of 1 second over B. Johnson here. Stretton's here coming out from the U17 rider, coming out of Australia here from the B category. If he can pull this off, it'd be absolutely amazing here. Stretton, though, comes across there. Stretton with 9 watts per kilogram. Selin here, though, coming out of Sweden, is going to try and come over the top. 177 beats per minute, 680 watts at 9 watts per kilogram. Will he be able to hold on to it? But it looks like the ADHR rider is going to try and pull this off. But an arrow power up at the last moment coming to the line. It's going to be Johnson, it looks like. B. Johnson just ahead of McKenzie, I believe. McKenzie popped that arrow power up, I believe, right before the line. Not sure if he was able to grab it. We'll grab the results here in just a second, but it was Johnson and McKenzie going to the line there, trying to get the win. Jeffrey Krill, we're looking at for the ride leader there, I think came through somewhere around the podium. Might have been third, fourth place there, but it was McKenzie, it looked like, up against Johnson from the HDR team, going for that 1-2 from the A category. A category, for sure, takes it down again this week. And there it is, Brendan Johnson with that attack into the second tier on that climb, holds it off just ahead of McKenzie with that late arrow power up. McKenzie was coming on so strong, just not able to quite pull it off there at the line there. James Urquhart, followed up by Cam Roberts there, followed up by Martin Selin out of Sweden. Jeffrey Krill for 6th place. Looks like Chris with some B7231. Sounds like a new band out there. Grant Harvey now as well in 8th place. Andy W. from the Dirt Team and Brian Kaleha for 10th place, rounding things out for the, not the Shram Sended series, but for the HDR, the chop out there today. We'll try and get the branding right next week. But Pat, nice sprint there on that 2-tier. I thought Kim Little let it out a little bit early, though, amongst the riders there. Well-timed, it looked like there from Brendan Johnson from HDR. McKenzie came on strong at the end with the arrow power-up. But Brendan, I thought it was even a little bit early for when he went, but the speed he carried into that second climb was able to hold things off.
Oh, and fantastic effort to see David Stretton there, the under-17 rider. He's in B grade, and he was right up there, pushed to the front right towards the end, but just lacking a little bit of strength against those stronger A-grade riders. Another supreme performance by A-grade again tonight. That's 3 weeks in a row. It's getting a little bit old, so let's hope B grade, C grade, or D grade next week.
Yeah, we'll see if we can manipulate things just a little bit to get maybe at sprint to line. It's always super epic whenever we do see those sprints at the line between the riders, but still a valiant effort by all the categories. Everybody got an amazing workout, obviously, as they're all pushing right around their FTP or more all the way to the line. I mean, it's if you've ever done a time trial or team time trial, you're giving everything you can for your teammates out there. And it looked like that would happen. And then it was every man for themselves at the finish. A category takes it down, and shout out to Johnson there for winning winning things this week. So let's go ahead and wrap it up, though. Join us next week for SRAM Send It Series race number 4, as well as the Chop, and of course the Zwift Classics London International Women's Race on Wednesday. Lots of racing next week. Make sure to check it out. And as always, ride on.